Introduction to Risk of Fraud by Edo Fiorentini. It's 8 p.m. on a Friday night in Barcelona in early September. The sun has just begun to set. In other European cities, this would mean the city would start to close down for the weekend, but in Barcelona, the sunset marks the start of the weekend. Edo walks out onto the bar's private balcony with a glass of Chablis. The city is spread out below him and is bathed in the golden glow of the September setting sun. With Edo is a young man in his early 20s. He's carrying a bottle of beer, the sunlight glinting off its neck and reflecting down into the plaza below. The young man is a recently hired employee of Edo's. He was confident during the interview process and managed to win Edo over despite Edo's misgivings about his sparse resume and an employment history that had a lot of holes in it. From the previous experiences listed on his one-page resume, and after a bit of digging by his team, Edo knew that he hadn't ever really had a proper job before. Edo had an intuitive feeling that this guy had probably been in some trouble before, but he had asked him in for an interview anyway. Usually he was risk-averse, but Edo had a gut feeling. During the interview, Edo had liked the guy's approach and confidence, and his knowledge of e-commerce systems and processes was second to none. In fact, his knowledge was a bit too good, considering he apparently hadn't worked in the industry before. The guy was able to quote chapter and verse the payment card industry's data security standards, and he could also explain the difference between affiliate fraud and merchant fraud easily and convincingly. Edo thought this guy was worth taking a gamble on, and that he could become a valuable asset to the business. He had chatted to the key members of his team and decided to offer him a short-term contract to see how it would work out. After the first week of the trial period had gone by, Edo had wanted to have a more relaxed chat outside of the office and the pressures of work to find out what makes this guy tick. He wanted to see, after a couple of drinks, if he could find out what his history actually had been, and was he worth taking a longer-term gamble on. What Edo didn't know was that this guy was a modern-day Oliver Twist, but for the e-commerce age. Instead of picking pockets and stealing loose change on the grimy Victorian streets of London, this guy was able to steal identities and empty bank accounts from the comfort of his own computer. He thought he knew everything and could even teach Edo a lesson or two in how to commit and get away with e-commerce fraud, as he himself had been doing for a few years. However, he had not considered how comprehensive Edo's fraud prevention experience and knowledge was. He was unaware that Edo had been through many different iterations of e-commerce fraud and knew how different fraudsters, depending on their backgrounds and goals, worked. Thus, he already knew their tricks and secrets and how to prevent them. But before we listen to their conversation on this sunny Barcelona balcony, let's first have a look at Edo's history so that we can understand what makes him so passionate about his job and why he is the best person to educate our new friend. Buy the book on Amazon, Risk of Fraud by Edoardo or Edo Fiorentini.